Hey guys, my name's Corey. Welcome to my channel where we create the world together. If you're new to this channel, my channel focuses on two things. One, me being a corrections officer for 9 years and then putting in my resignation, which that just happened. Also, I talk about becoming an online reseller, which I buy products, items for cheap and resell them online to make a profit on eBay, Craigslist, OfferUp, whatever. This video in particular is going to be about the corrections officer side of my channel. So I put out a video a week ago about what it was like becoming a corrections officer for the first time and doing my first month in the prison system. This video, as you can tell in the title, is going to be about the first time that I came across a dead inmate. I do need to stress that this video is not going to be for younger people. I need to also put out a disclaimer that I will not be giving out any names, times, locations. So anytime I do videos about being a corrections officer and about the prison, I just have to disclaim that these are my views, my opinions, my stories, my outlook on the prison system. This is not every prison. I know I've said this before, and this doesn't happen all the time. This is just my experience of what I went through as a corrections officer for 9 years. So let's just get right into it. So the first time that I came across a dead person, a dead inmate, it actually wasn't in the beginning of my career. It was a few years down. Now, I had seen dead people, dead inmates before in the first few years, but it was more of like going to a hospital, what we call hospital runs, where you would go to a hospital and sit on. So we say sit on. Basically, sitting on just means you're sitting next to an inmate at a hospital, but we would sit on inmates at the hospital, and sometimes they would pass away in front of us on our shift, or we would have to relieve the previous shift and they were sitting on an inmate that had deceased in the hospital. But this particular time was a few years into my career, and this was actually in the prison. So basically, it was just normal shift, nothing going on. I was working the yard, which means I was just running around all the buildings, checking the fences, checking the perimeter buildings, just running errands for anybody. And somebody called on the radio an ICS, which is an incident command system, which means something's going on, all ears, all eyes, pay attention, something's going on. So an officer initiates this ICS. Everybody's listening. Now this officer says, we have an unresponsive inmate in cell whatever. I need some people down here. Me and a couple guys go down there. It takes us like less than 2 minutes. We approach the cell, and by that time that I had got there, that inmate was awake and alive on the top bunk. Now he had some blood in his mouth, and he was disoriented. So we were thinking, okay, this guy just got assaulted by his bunkie, the guy that lives below him, that sleeps below him. But we interviewed him, we interviewed his bunkie. They seemed to be friends. The guy at the bottom bunk said, I have no idea what's going on. I got up to get some coffee. I noticed that he wasn't, my cellie wasn't moving, and he looked kind of funny. I was shaking him and he wasn't waking up. So he banged on the door, got another officer's attention, and then that's when he initiated. But by the time that we had got there, I guess the inmate came too. So he had some blood in his mouth. We got a hold of the nurse. We escorted the inmate down. He was talking, he was walking, he was fine, and we got him down to the health unit where the nurse could evaluate him. I took off at that time. Everything seemed to be good. I thought maybe he got popped in the mouth. So the nurse evaluated him and said, this guy's good to go. As far as I can tell, he's fine. I don't know what happened. Now, I need to say this. The health units and the nurses and medical staff at the prisons, they do their best. I got nothing bad to say about them. They do their best for how many inmates they have to take care of, and it's of all hours of the day and night. So I'm not saying anything about this nurse, but he said he was good to go. So to be safe for us, we thought, just in case, let's move this inmate out of that cell, just in case there was an assault. So we just wanted to get him by himself away from that guy, at least for the night, until we could talk more about this in the morning. So we end up moving that inmate to another cell on the top tier of the building. So there was a bottom tier and a top tier. We moved him by himself into a cell for the night. We asked him if he was good. He said, yeah, I'm fine. I'll sleep here tonight. But I promise, guys, there's nothing going on in that cell. I wasn't assaulted. We said, that's fine. We're just going to put you in here for the night, and then we'll talk about it more tomorrow. The whole night proceeds as normal. So this shift was graveyard shift, I should say that. So this was at the time from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 2200 to 0600. So this happened right about 10:30, maybe 11 o'clock, basically right when we got there. Okay, so now remember, the inmate's by himself in his cell. Okay, now all night, the floor officer, which is the same guy that initiated ICS, he's doing his walks for the rest of the night, every 30 minutes, 40 minutes, like he's supposed to be doing. He's knocking on the door on this one guy, checking on him, and he's awake, moving around. And then probably about 2 o'clock in the morning, the inmate decides to go to sleep. So now he's sleeping in his cell. And according to my partner and the officer that was working down there, he said he would look in there every now and then, just knock on the door. The inmate would give a hand up saying, I'm fine, but he's sleeping and it's dark. So now comes time, it's about 5:30 in the morning, and that officer goes to do another check. Bangs on the door. The inmate's been there by himself, remember, no response. Bangs on the door again. We're supposed to give like 3 warnings or knocks, like, hey, inmate, whatever, wake up, you need to respond, bam, bam, bam. So 5:30ish in the morning, I'm still walking around the yard. I've been around the yard all night, and we get another ICS by that same officer. I have an unresponsive inmate. So we're thinking, man, is it that same guy? Like, what's going on with this? So at this time, it's me, my lieutenant, and another officer, which my lieutenant is 2 ranks above me. I was the CO, and then there's sergeant, and then there's lieutenant. So it's me, a lieutenant, and another officer. And we're walking around, we're finishing up the shift, we're about ready to go home. So we hear ICS, unresponsive inmate, and it's in that same location. So we're walking down there, and then we're thinking, I don't know, this seems a little fishy. So all 3 of us just got this feeling. So now we're really running to this place now, because we're thinking, I don't know, same guy, unresponsive inmate, we're taking off. So as we get there, we're the first ones on scene. That officer is standing outside the door because you're not supposed to go in the door. This is a bunk bed, single cell. It's actually called a double cell. There's a bunk bed inside of the cell, so 2 inmates can be in there. So the officer is not supposed to go in there if he doesn't have backup, because this inmate could be faking it. He could have a weapon, pretending to sleep, underneath his chest. He's not supposed to go in there until he gets help, and he's in command of this ICS. So we approach the door. That officer is standing outside the door, and he's telling us as we're coming up, hey, this guy, he's not waking up, and I've been banging for like 5 minutes. So now we bang a couple more times. Boom, 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 no move. Lieutenant looks at the control room officer, says, hey, pop this door, because now there's like 4 of us there. So we pop the door. The inmate is on his stomach, and we can't see his hands, so we're approaching cautiously, and we're calling his name. And then we get to him, and I'm pushing on him while my partners and lieutenant are behind me, and I'm pushing on him, saying, hey. So I said, I don't know, he's pretty stiff, he's not moving. So I grab his shoulder and his hip. Remember, he's on his stomach, and I flip him over towards me. Actually, I pushed him so I could see his face, and he was stiff. I could just tell this guy has died, or he is dying right now. My lieutenant says, get him off the bed, immediately. So all of us just grab him, pull him off the bed, and put him on the ground. I'm doing a sternum rub, which is basically just rubbing as hard as I can on his chest. Hey, wake up. And he's pretty locked up about in this position. And my lieutenant just immediately takes control, says, I need everybody down here, the medical, call 911, because at this point you call 911, you get an ambulance, and he just says, start CPR immediately. So now this guy is stiff. Now, I know that officer that's been doing walks, and he does a good job, so I know he was checking on this guy. So he was, rigor mortis was starting to set in, but he was still bendable and stuff. I know that's crazy, but he was still posable. And this inmate had blood and vomit all around his mouth. His eyes were sort of halfway open, and I just remember his tongue was almost like sticking out a little bit. So this is the first time, like, oh, this is really happening, like CPR. We're trained for this, we go to classes for this, but this is for real. Now, my sergeant who was there, who showed up, he gives me the mouthpiece to do CPR, which is just a plastic like plate with a almost like in a breathing machine, like for asthma. It's got like that little mouth guard in it. So you're supposed to stick this in, and it's got a one-way valve in case they do start vomiting or coughing or whatever, it doesn't come out of the valve. So he gives me his. Now I have to put this in the inmate's mouth, and his jaw was locked shut. So I couldn't get that piece in there. I remember having to take my pinkies and stick it in his mouth and like pry his mouth open and then shove that piece of plastic down inside of his mouth to do this CPR. So finally, I ratchet that open. There's blood and vomit around his face. And yeah, I need to tell you, this is not for the faint of heart. And if you're squeamish, I don't blame you. Imagine being there. So now I got this piece in, and now my other partner is doing chest compressions, and I'm doing the breaths like we're supposed to do. Now everybody's showing up because everybody realizes, oh, this is not a drill. This is like all hands on deck. This is obviously real serious. Everybody's showing up behind me in this one little room, and they're bringing the backboard, and everybody's on the radio, and we're just doing CPR. So a nurse that works at the unit shows up with an AED. Now, I don't remember what it stands for, but what it is, it's the defibrillator. So it's that machine that has the pads that you put on the heart and the side, and it's like clear, bzz, zaps them. So she shows up with this AED, and I'm thinking she's gonna just take over. This is a nurse. Nope, she hands it to me. And I say, ma'am, I'm like trying to say this because we got a camera on this. I'm like, ma'am, I've never used one of these before, only in training. And she says, well, I don't know how to use it either. Now, this is the medical staff. I'm thinking, oh my gosh. So I just rip it open. Now, luckily, it's pretty much made for dummies anyways. It tells you what to do on the pads. So we get it on him. I get it on him. The nurse is just watching. I mean, she might as well have had a box of popcorn. I was thinking, oh, thankfully medical's here, to help out. Nope, she just watched. So now I got the defibrillator going on him. It's not a defibrillator. I might be saying that wrong. I think the defibrillator are the pads. Boom. But it does the same thing. Whatever. So I got this on him, and we're doing it. We're doing CPR for maybe about at this time 10 minutes, maybe 8 minutes, and everybody's showing up all within this 8 minutes, and then the backboard is there. So now we got to get this guy down to medical. Okay, so remember, he's on the top tier. This guy was not light by any means. Now, I mean, I'm not trying to be funny when I say this, but he was dead weight, and on top of that, he was at least 250, 260 pounds. So he was a big guy. So me and about 5 other guys, get him on that like backboard, which is just like what they run with in Baywatch, It's like the backboard. We get him on there, we hoist this guy up, and at this time, we're not doing CPR because we got to get him on the gurney, which is downstairs on the bottom tier. Now we got to go down 2 flights of stairs to get down to there. So imagine, us 4 guys are holding this guy. So we start going down the stairs, and this inmate starts sliding off the backboard. So now I'm holding the backboard, and I'm grabbing this guy's shoulder, and everybody's grabbing limbs and just trying to hold this guy on. But he is sliding down, almost going to go down these stairs. And that was my thought. We're going to lose this guy like a luge down these stairs in front of all these inmates and the camera and everything, and for sure this is gonna go to like some academy, like don't be these idiots, but luckily he didn't fall all the way down. His feet were hanging off and his legs were bending a little bit, but he didn't fall off. So good. We get him downstairs, We put him up on the gurney, and now you have to do CPR continuously. You cannot stop CPR until medical, like an EMT or a doctor says, okay, the person is deceased, stop CPR. So while he's on the gurney, I am doing CPR with him on the gurney while somebody else took over and was doing the breaths. And we're doing this on the run on a gurney with the wheels all the way to the health unit. Just CPR, we're slipping and sliding all over the place. It's crazy. Everybody on the yard is showing up. I mean, there's like 30 people in brown, you know, the officer color brown, just like trying to help and open doors and open gates. And we get this guy into the health unit. Right at that time, the paramedics came in. Now, I have to tell you, this is about 30 to 40 minutes after the ICS was first initiated that we have been doing CPR. So me and about 2 other guys were doing CPR for about 40 minutes, which is extremely tiring. I mean, I ask you to do this on something and be moving around and have your adrenaline going for about 40 minutes and then see how tired you are. So now we're at the health unit. EMTs are there, real paramedics, and fire trucks show up. They come in, tell us to just get out of the way. They hook him up to a machine that can read his vitals and everything, and stuff that we don't have at our facility. They say, get out of the way, and now they take over the CPR. This one, like, little lady, she jumped up on top of the gurney and just started doing CPR herself. It was a lot easier for her. And now they hook them up to a machine, they step away, and then at that time they call it, this person's deceased. They call a time, they're on the phone with doctors. So now it's sort of out of our hands at this point. Everybody stops, everybody starts to calm down, and the lieutenant pulls me and a few other people aside. We have to fill out paperwork about what happened and everything like that. And then they offer a service for everybody that was involved. A person comes down to ask, hey, is everybody okay? Like physically and mentally, does anybody need to talk to anybody? Because this is a traumatic thing. Everybody pretty much declined on that. So it was just nice that they offered that. But I stayed for about an hour and a half after work, maybe 2 hours to fill out paperwork and everything. And everybody was just talking about it like, whoa, that was kind of crazy. You know, that was a lot of first deaths at the prison, because to be honest, that doesn't really happen all that much. I mean, for 9 years, I have seen it a handful of times, which I can talk about those stories later. But I was probably working for the prison for like 5 years at that time, 4 or 5 years. And this was the first one that I had seen that happened on my shift while I was there. You always hear about it, but that was the first time that happened on my shift. So that basically sums it up, guys. That was the first time that on my shift, I came across somebody that had passed away on my shift in the prison. Now, this has happened after that, which I can talk about those stories later. I got plenty of stories. I got 9 years in the department. Some of them are a little bit more aggressive, there's some homicides, and I can talk about that kind of stuff if you guys enjoy these kinds of videos. But you guys gotta let me know in the comments below if this is the kind of stuff that you want to hear about with me being in prison. Now, not every story I have is so dramatic in death and killing. I have some really funny stories that happen that I'd love to talk to you guys about too. So just let me know below what you'd like to know, and say, hey, let's hear a funny story that happened at prison, because actually there's a lot more of those than the really bad ones. So I'd love to talk about that with you guys. So anyways, that was my first experience with death at the prison on my shift. This channel is not all about the corrections officer side. If you're following me on this channel, you'll know that I have recently quit as a corrections officer after 9 years, and I'm pursuing a career as an online reseller. Like I talked about in the beginning, just buying stuff and then selling it online for a profit. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in, subscribing to the channel, and giving me the comments and keeping everything positive. Again, if you like this stuff, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you can get notified when new videos come out, and I'll talk to you guys later. I hope everybody has a nice and wonderful, safe day.